This is a response to 2bsirius' video about the Mary problem. Sorry, this isn't the driving video, Karen, but this is how I'm getting to work about right now, so this is my thinking time. But yeah, it's really interesting. The Mary problem, the colourblind scientist, or the scientist who's deprived of colour and yet has access to all the information about colour, so she ends up, in theory, according to the way it's stated by Frank Jackson, she ends up knowing everything about colour and about colour vision without ever actually experiencing colour. And then the question, as you rightly state, is that if she's somehow escapes from a black and white monochromatic prison cell and sees a red rose or a red apple for the first time, does she gain new knowledge? Our intuitions say yes, which flies in the face of physicalism, because if something happens there, if something genuinely original happens there, then clearly she didn't know everything or something. So it's an interesting experiment, thought experiment. There's a really good collection of essays and articles about this, which you probably know, Karen, called "There's Something About Mary," which bundles together the various objections and critiques and extrapolations from that. Can't remember who edited it. It's pretty good though. But I think it was in there that I read a really interesting one. It might have been somewhere else, or I might be making this up. I think that's unlikely. A really good response to do with what it means when we say we know something. Because in a way, that whole problem hinges around the idea that locked in her monochromatic room, Mary can come to know everything about colour and colour vision. So you kind of have to go inside the word know and figure out what that means, really. Because the assumption that's unstated is that the knowing that's going on there is explicit knowledge. It's declarative knowledge. She's presumably reading books, or maybe possibly doing some kind of experiments, or she's acquiring that kind of, as I say, explicit declarative knowledge that can be talked about and shared symbolically, as opposed to procedural knowledge. Procedural knowledge is it's kind of know that as opposed to know how. It's implicit. It's not easily described. Procedural knowledge is what I'm using right now to drive this car, whereas declarative knowledge is the account I'm giving right now in this article that I read in this book called "There's Something About Mary." So it's that kind of distinction. But in a way, I think that distinction is at the crux of the Mary problem. At least that's my favourite attack on the problem. Because although our intuitions tell us that knowledge is declarative, it is the stuff of books and it is the stuff of explanations, the distinction that appears intuitively obvious between that kind of knowledge and the procedural knowledge of how to drive a car, for example, or how to juggle or how to write, although that appears to be a very harsh distinction, in every other terms apart from the intuitions, that distinction doesn't really hold. Certainly at a neurological level, and at most conceptual levels, the distinction between declarative, as I say, and procedural knowledge isn't valid. You can't make the distinction between know-how and know-that. And in fact, they could both be kind of bundled together under a general rubric of performance. Knowledge is that kind of mental activity which can be performed in order to carry out some task. And sometimes that performance involves physical activity. We might call it know-how, driving a car. And sometimes that performance involves the articulation of ideas through symbols. And we might choose to call that know that, but it's all generally the kind of performing of some kind of knowledge. And if so, just to play that back into the Mary problem, if Mary is genuinely in possession of all knowledge, under the terms that I've been talking about it, that means she is genuinely able to perform all kinds of knowing, both know-how and know-that. The know-that is easy, but performing the know-how related to colour vision basically means seeing colours. That's what performing colour vision knowledge, colour vision procedural knowledge would involve. So in that sense, she can't acquire all the knowledge while she's in a monochromatic room, because there's no opportunity for her to perform any kind of knowledge that involves the know-how of seeing. Or alternatively, you would have to construct some narrative where she was able to construct colour vision from the ground up. I guess this relates to the Ramachandran thing that you're talking about. You know, she would have to develop synesthesia, develop the ability to see Martian colours that weren't even actually there in the room by sheer dint of acquisition of seeing skills in the abstract. I mean, that's obvious, that's not really possible, but that would be the alternative to the impossibility. So yeah, I think that's right. Let me just see if I can recap. Yeah. No, I won't bother recapping, you've probably got it. I'm at Ponsanooth now, and there's a bunch of bends here which will make you travel sick. So, I'll leave it at that. Actually, I want to try to relate this to something that Got That Funk said, but on one of my videos. But I'll make a separate video about that, I think. Thanks very much.